Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Trekyards. He is Commander Cocky.
He is Captain Foley.
And we are here to talk today about the latest episode of Prodigy.
The epic first-parter of the two-part cliffhanger for the first half of the first season in Batch 2.
Ironically, just yesterday, or was it the day before, on TV, the episode of Voyager where they get left on the planet and the Kazon take the ship.
Basics.
Aired. Yeah, so I saw part one of that. I saw the end of it. And it's like, that's exactly what this is, with some people still on the ship. Kind of.
So, Stuart, what do you think of Season 1, Batch 2, Episode 9?
I thought it was good. It definitely left on a more upbeat note than the Voyager episode, let's say.
Yes, I would say so. That was pretty dire. Yeah.
Once the ship went to warp, I'm like, okay, that's going to be the end. I thought it was good. It was a good first part of a two-parter, and we got to see them in uniforms, which I'm kind of mixed about. But hey, I enjoyed it enough. But yeah, I got to see part two. I don't know how I feel necessarily. I'm not super stoked for it. It seemed like there wasn't a lot of meat on the bones, and it was not the longest of episodes. Yeah, hopefully part two's better and kind of makes the whole thing feel better in, hindsight. So,
and of course, though, guys, joining our detailed breakdown with all these thoughts, and Stuart will then have it soak up in his brain, and we'll go by scene, and of course, obviously, all of our edited breakdowns as well. So tune in for the normal time, and those videos. So Stuart, yes, no, I came away with very odd vibes from this one. It was solidly okay, but it felt to me like all of the best content is going to be in part 2. Like, all of the best plot lines, all the best stuff. It's the most setup of episodes where, even though in theory some major stuff happened, it feel like nothing major happened. I'm like, oh, part 2 better be much better. But they've like built in all of the good stuff in there. It was very strange, and I definitely left unsatisfied. Luckily, that isn't the end of season 2-parter, in which case that would be a hell of a squib to end on. But luckily there's one more. Hopefully it's longer, like you say. Hopefully has. Now we've got all the setup, we just... But they've already burned through some good amount of story that I'm also left thinking, I guess we're leaving most of the season 1 part 1 setup stuff behind. Because I was going to say not a lot happened, but a lot did happen, but it feels like nothing happened. Because they literally, the villain of the show, the Diviner, got the Protostar. He succeeded. He leaves.
He got the ship. He didn't get the actual
Wow.
Protostar.
Oh, sorry. I'll rephrase. He got the USS Protostar, but not the Protostar. Fair enough. So that is the thing of the season.
Like I said, it's a good comparison to the Voyager one, where it's just like, oh no, what's going to happen? How can they ever get the ship back? They have a plan. Obviously, they have Janeway protocols in place that Janeway's got a backup somewhere that's going to be able to take over at some point. That's kind of the vibe that I'm getting. I like the idea of making a different shell, basically of Zero, and having Murph eat the Protostar and then go into the shell. I'm not sure how that works exactly, but we know that Murph is indestructible at this point, so that's pointed out.
Although while it's a fine idea, since the last episode was entirely about the Protostar being so unstable, it destroys the entire ship. Because you need to build a warp matter matrix to keep it stable because of gravity. And yet the Murph creature cannot just keep it fine. It's like, oh. So it's both incredibly difficult and obscenely easy. I know you got a special life form, but those two things back to back is a bit like, oh, stakes feel a bit underwhelming now. Because I was kind of imagining something else that within, but I just ate it. It's like, oh.
Yeah, I mean, I was hoping to get a little more explanation. I'm sure we'll get that in episode 2 about when the Diviner looks at Gwen and says, "How dare you wear that uniform?" And you have no idea what it represents. That was leading to me to what we've been speculating, that the Federation is actually responsible for the death of his civilization, perhaps, which would make sense, his anger in that regard. And then he says to Dreadnock we should have told her the truth from the beginning. It's because she probably never would have joined them at that point. But I wanted more of an explanation for that, and I'm sure we're going to get that in part 2. But what were your thoughts on that specifically?
No, absolutely. And I was certainly waiting for the end sting, which we just didn't get. I know the end sting was, oh no, you're going to betray me, maybe. Goodbye. Or at warp. Wasn't quite. They needed something. They needed, I honestly, I was waiting for, because I know that the people in our Trekyards chat have said, oh, he's actually Chakotay, and I was waiting for that silly reveal.
I was too at one point, because somebody put that little earworm in there, and I'm like, oh my god. But no.
this is obviously in context, because when we see this full 10, then the full 20, and the full 40, this will be a small chapter in the book of it, right? And so that is going to be better after the fact. It's obviously going to be better. So I'm very positive of them for being brave enough to actually have the villain get the ship and completely wreck the status quo. Very impressive in terms of a bold move, because, you know, this was a villain who had a powerful ship, who had a powerful colony, all this stuff, and he threw away the colony, and they might all die because of asphyxiation. They basically disabled his own ship and may not ever come back again, and gave that up like it's nothing, which is a very bold move, to then take the ship. So that's a complete reset, status quo, and you can't, like, I cannot see any way him regaining the Rev 12 again. Now that plotline's gone. And be so confident, you know, he's in charge, he feels like he's been in the ship before, he feels like he's whatever, Deadlock obviously can just use the systems like no one's business, and I love that idea about Janeway, but I feel like he knows the ship more than they do, and therefore would sense that, and that it can't be that easy, because it's a computer, all the information's in the computer, and I'm sure they would look at, well, what have the kids done in the last 2 months, let's undo that, blah, blah, blah. I mean, they overwrite Janeway within seconds. So it was really interesting, like, just in charge, you know, and they even knew about emergency protostar recharging, which is a whole new thing we just learned about.
They probably do know the ship pretty well, like you said. They did create the shell of Zero with the vehicle replicator. I'm thinking maybe they replicated a separate computer or something for the Janeway backup that Gwen is going to initialize at some point, so it won't be in the main system. So if they do go looking for something, but then you got to erase your logs for what the vehicle replicator built, because they would have had to do that for Zero as well, because they would have looked at that and realized what happened. So I don't know.
But also the plan, they didn't expect to get the ship necessarily. Like, everything's dependent on what might happen, and that was quite a bold. I wouldn't have thought that was going to be the situation, and so I would think whatever plan they had would have been before they went to warp. But the fact they went to warp, I'd assume would scupper that. And even having a Janeway, you know, like a Moriarty-style hollow box, it's not connected. And even if it is connected, then it might be hackable. And although, yes, we might see, Janeway versus Janeway, should be quite funny. That might be a thing we see.
I think we are going to see that for sure. Like I said, I think it's probably totally disconnected from the system right now, and they're relying on,
a timer, I guess, to reactivate it.
Yeah, because I don't think they necessarily expected Gwen to be going with him.
No.
But they could have planned for that as well. Like, there was a montage of them planning, so that implies that we got every contingency covered. But they're just kids after all.
Yeah, they've never shown much strategic ability beyond the basics. So I assume to be a simple plan that.
I don't know if they planned on using the Rev 12. I mean, they want to repair it, obviously, but did they assume that he would destroy the power matrix of it?
Well, no, they did say it was an unexpected, a bit of a wrinkle in the plan.
Yeah, well, the gravity for sure. Yeah.
If things out of power, it's like, well, I don't think you should plug a protostar into a thing. I that's what they're gonna do, but it feels very.
Well, Dreadnock seemed like he wanted to say something about if we leave the Rev 12 and then got cut off by the Diviner. Remember, the Diviner's, back to tank, essentially, is on there. I think that's what Dreadnock was referring to. I don't know if he's going to need that at some point.
Well, it's just radical to literally give up your Super Star Destroyer sort of style of ship. Like, everything, he didn't take any bags with him, no technology, no anything. That means a Protostar is everything he needs for a one-time, no contingency, because he wouldn't destroy your own ship if you had a contingency plan, which is basically what he was doing. I mean, I guess you could argue maybe if the power went down, they'd all die of asphyxiation, then he could come back in 6 months and pick up the ship. I guess you could argue that, but what if an asteroid hit it in the meantime and destroyed it? I mean, there's no... if the Kazon guy comes back and finds it deserted, he'll steal everything. Because he's... So that feels like a very poor plan. Obviously, it was made up on the spot, because he wasn't his intention to give the ship. The fact that, what is he going to go do? Because he knows exactly where to go. He has such a vibe. He needs proto-warpable distance. Just.
They had a bit of a insight that something might happen, because Zero had that case with the jetpack things that they have. I forget what they called them. Which are going to be very helpful with the Zero-G thing. I don't know. It's going to be some amazing plan that all comes together. Just like like I said, the Voyager episode is a good comparison. Who was left on board the Voyager? The Doctor shut his program down to be reinitialized after a certain time, and then there was Suter on board as well, and that ends up saving the day. So it's going to be the same kind of thing in this case. I think there's a lot of parallels.
And I kind of assumed Zero would be on the ship still, because then you have a spy, a non-corporeal life form. That's a good sort of being.
Well, even Zero made the hope that he doesn't, use me as a weapon, because Zero had escaped from the Diviner earlier. So it was just such a weird, like you said, it was a weird feeling coming out of this one. I enjoyed it, but at the same time, it felt too short, and not a lot happened. Even though a lot happened.
Even though they went back to the place they started, and they got the ship, and the Diviner got the ship, and Gwen's on the ship, and Jeremy got eradicated. It's like, those are major plot points. And they felt like they were kind of thrown away. There's only one protostar. Obviously, it's going to have to come back and get the protocol. So it's going to be a short term. They didn't just leave. So that's fine. That'll be a reset quite quickly. But then, is he going to be an anti-hero, the Diviner? They're going to, is he going to then turn to, we need to help him to save his species sort of plot line, etc.?
Well, yeah, that's going to be I think it's going to be a massive plot point. Either Starfleet or the Federation was responsible for the death of his civilization, or they're something they did totally unaware to them that this happened, but he knows about it, or he suspects that it was them. He might be wrong. Could be a coincidental thing that happened at the same time or something. So he's focused all his energy there. So yeah, he is kind of like a good villain in that regard, that he thinks he's doing what's right.
Well, I definitely appreciated that the tone of his character changed. Once he had the ship, he doesn't need the same evil bravado, because he's already, he's now actually fine on his mission, and he made it clear, that I want to do this with you. I shouldn't have let you go, because I was obviously, I've been doing this for 30 years. I was finding my
greater
grasp.
Stakes, essentially.
Yeah,
so
you
chose the ship over you.
You are just my daughter. I need to save 10 billion of my family. There's no comparison there. But now we're in the situation. It's like, I'd rather have you and the ship. Let's do it together. So I felt a nice weight behind. There's more here. There's always something behind these people. And if it's like I say, if it's trying to save 500 billion of his race, well, there's a lot of justification you could possibly do for that, because so much. If it's all about the Federation as well, if it is, let's say, simple revenge story, which it isn't, but let's say it is, even just the idea that, well, the Protostar can only do fast speed, that's its thing, right? So is it just about wanting to get to the Alpha Quadrant, or back to the Alpha Quadrant, let's say, quickly? Because if it will take you 40 years at standard warp, or say, I'll just say, that'll do it in 5 minutes, and he didn't think it would take him 30 years to find it. So he'll say, yes, we'll dig in. So therefore you're saving years, decades, but it just took 30 years to find. But now he can go back in 45 seconds. Is that it? Is that just so he can get back to the Alpha Quadrant and make a mess?
I don't think so. See, there's the weird time question mark hovering over this whole thing of searching for the Protostar for so long, but yet it being commanded by Chakotay, who was post-Voyager.
I
so there's a lot going
on.
Yeah, well, maybe the Diviner and Dreadnock know more about the ship than obviously the kids did, so they know there might be a time element to the Protostar drive, and that's the plan, to go back and stop what initially happened or something. It's hard to say, but I think that's going to come into play relatively soon.
Well, but maybe it is literally just the sort of the Nero storyline from 09 again, where something causes the Diviner, and because Rev 12 is a big imposing ship with a cloak that you've never seen before. It's very advanced. So that ship and the Protostar both come back into the past. Chakotay manages to hide it somewhere. XYZ takes 30 years, but he says he has to go back because he can save his people who aren't dead yet, because they're going to die in 5 years. Now he's been that's why he's pissed off, because obviously every minute he's not whatevering, but literally was done in 09. Not well, obviously, but
plus, since it took him 30 years, he's not doing so great. That's because of his tank and stuff. And that's one of the reasons that he created Gwen in the first place, against the Order. And Dreadnock was quite opposed to that, and even has said since that you're the Diviner's biggest mistake. And Dreadnock seems to have his own agenda and realize that his boss isn't quite as stable when it comes to his daughter. And I think that's going to come into play as well at some point, because even in this episode, there were a few glances from Dreadnock.
I was going to say, you definitely felt like he'll turn against him. There's that fine line he's crossing right up against. That's considering a robot that has no like features. It's just eyes and little mandibles. Yeah, that came across. That was very well done for them. So no, it was very, very strange. Like and I wasn't.
That being said, before you jump on your next point, the Dreadnock has more features than the Mandalorian, and you can tell a lot of what's going on with him just by the subtle little movement of the helmet. So
perfect. Well, so obviously like R2D2 and C3PO. I mean, when it's such a short episode where you'd rather have minutes of really high quality, one of the bits I did think was a bit overdone, and I really wanted other time, was when the gravity went down and they faff around in gravity, and even though the ship is already leaving, they still yell and scream for like minutes and
until
stop.
they leave. It's like, yeah,
and it's like just cut that entire sequence. Like, just try and go to the floor. The divine isn't gonna come back and stop you because you've got back to the floor. You know, they should have tried to. It's a small thing, but just wasted time for me. It was so few minutes. You know, I was like, what's the next thing gonna be? Credits.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, me too. I also thought it was kind of strange that Dreadnock actually deactivated all the drones and released all the restraints, and then not reinitiate them before they jumped again.
Yeah, they were honouring a bargain, legitimately honouring a bargain. Well, that up to that point.
Well, he said, yeah, I wasn't going to leave him with the ship. It's kind of the caveat to that. I destroyed the power drive. So,
although in fairness, I also don't actually think that he knew that the Divine was going to order that. So he was doing what he was told. Then the Diviner double crossed. So I really like that. I like the idea that actually these guys are actually honourable enough to let them leave, because they might have even just have locked out the Rev 12 system. Something that simple, so they couldn't fly away, would be enough to be, we just have to kill them all or disable them. But I was like, okay, because at any point you could double cross. They didn't until the not even the final blow sort of double cross. Yeah, that was strange but interesting. And I kind of was sad that it wasn't an honourable deal, because if you can be a scumbag with good intentions, but you can be a scumbag with good intentions then does bad things for bad intentions, and they obviously cross that line again. But it'd be more interesting if you had let them live. Oh, and we'll talk about the uniforms obviously in a side video. I'm sure we've already filmed it by the time you're watching this. And I did like the Janeway reversal, new evil character version, although, a new uniform, new implication there. How's that going to be? Very confusing.
We'll have uniform videos, guys.
So yes, join in for our full live tonight, doing every single scene by scene, analysing, breaking down, theorising, and of course adding some of his videos on this, and some more Picard videos Monday and Tuesday. Tune in for all that good stuff. Put comments down below. Like, subscribe, click the bell, share if you like what we do. I mean, who doesn't love uniforms? So share, and comments are really appreciated.
And if you want to join us for lives, as he said, click the notification bell icon to all so you get notified, and then come in and join us, support us via Super Chat, or join us at Patreon, or join the channel. There's a join button down there. All great ways to stay in touch and show your support for the channel and for what we do here, because we love doing it, we love talking to you guys, and we want you to be part of it. So until next time, he is Commander Cocky.
He is Captain Foley.
And we'll see you soon.
Bye, guys.
Bye, guys.